Okay guys, so hopefully you watched the other video where we graphed some regular quadratics in standard form. This time we're doing vertex form, and this one's actually the easier one that I started you guys out with, a couple months ago, okay? But that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at this problem number 4. Now this again is off of today's worksheet, which is graph quadratics vertex form, which if I have not yet, I will post in Google Classroom. Okay? But anyways, looking at this problem number 4, it's really this simple, guys. Whenever it's in vertex form, you'll see this parentheses there. And basically, you just ask yourself, what makes it 0? Do you agree that -2 plus this 2 would make that whole parentheses go to 0? You see, whatever makes it 0, guys, logically is the middle of your graph. Okay? And so I'm already ready to make my table. Check out how simple this is again. If you agree that -2 makes it 0, well, -2 and this number 2 is going to be your vertex. And then, because this is the middle point, the vertex, then you just have to do some counting backwards and forwards. How about we do -1 and -3, for example? Now, if you do -3, -2, -1, that's fine. Just make sure you go in order. -1, -2, -3, or in reverse. Just keep them in order, guys, and it just works out so much nicer. Now, let's start by plugging in -1. So with the calculator, guys, I want to remind you, again, our function was -2, x plus 2 squared plus 2, right? And notice right here, I plugged in the -1. Type it in exactly the way it's written, guys, including the parentheses. Get in the habit of always using parentheses with your calculator, okay? As you can see, I get a 0. So -1 was 0. Now, -2 should be 2, right? Well, notice when I plug in -2, I do get 2 here. And then finally, I'm going to plug in -3. And notice when I plug in -3, I get 0. Now, notice again, guys, that these match up. And as long as you count in order, the numbers on opposite sides of the vertex should be symmetric, as we say. The word is symmetric. They should match up. If the zeros did not match up, guys, that means the vertex somehow is wrong. Okay? So, that maybe you have the wrong sign here, for example. But anyways, we're ready to graph. -1 is 0. -2 is 2. -3 is 0. Remember to connect it with a curve, guys. It's a curve, not straight-sided lines. Okay? It's a curve function. But that's it. All right, let's do one more here. Here's number 5. All I do is look inside my parentheses here, and I go, oh, I know that 3 minus 3 is 0. I can make my table. I'm going to put 3 in the middle. Now, the number at the end, guys, is part of your vertex. So I already know my vertex is at 3. 3 is what made it 0, i.e. the center of my graph. So 3, 2. And then counting, I would do 2, 3, and 4, or 4, 3, 2. Okay, just keep them in order. We are now ready for our calculator here. Let's start by plugging in 2. If I plug in 2, notice I get a 4. If I plug in 3, notice I get a 2. Again, if I plug in 3, wrong spot there. If I plug in 3, I get a 2. Awesome. Oop. Made a mistake there. Okay. Now I'm going to plug in 4. If I plug in 4, I get a 4. Notice how these match up. If they don't, your vertex somehow is wrong. Again, most likely you have this sign wrong here or something. Okay, so we're ready to graph again. 2 is 4. 3 is 2. Sorry about the bell there, guys. And 4 is 4. Connect it with a curve, guys, and our graph is done. It's that simple. Let's do one more. We look inside here, and we go, what makes that parentheses go to 0? It's -2. So I'm going to make my table, and I know -2 will be right in the middle. Again, if you want to remember, that number at the end is also the y-coordinate of your vertex, but we're going to check it with a calculator anyways. So knowing that -2 is the vertex where it made it 0, counting up and down, I would do what? -1 and -3, or I would do -3, -2, -1 in reverse order. Just make sure you count in order, guys. Keep these numbers here in order, okay? So we're ready to plug in -1. So when I plug in -1, notice I get -8. When I plug in -2, notice I get -4. We already have that. When I plug in -3, notice I get -8. Notice how these match up again, guys. They got to match up, or your vertex is wrong somehow. Most likely the wrong sign here, if it's wrong. Okay, so we're ready to graph one more time. -1 is -8. Ooh, notice the scale is going by 2, so I almost made a mistake there. So -1 is right here, right? That's -2 right there. So -1 is -8. -2 is -4. And -3 is right there, between -2 and -4, right? Is -8. And if I connect it with a curve, you can see it's going downwards. Now, speaking of going downwards, notice again, guys. Notice again that this graph is opening down. Why? Because the A here is negative. Notice this one is pointing up or opening up because the A in front is positive. Finally, this one that we started with is -2. That's why it's opening down. So a negative x squared opens down, a positive x squared opens up. So I hope this video and the prior video help you better with your graph quadratics, guys. What's important is you practice these problems, guys, especially the calculator work here. Use those parentheses. Make sure you can do the squares, all that good stuff. All right, I'll see you in class.